And this is the hardest thing to come face to face to say, I'm just not very good at making meaning. Wow. Well, then you have a really serious existential problem. And if you don't have a philosophical, integrated framework in which to plug into, then those thoughts can get very dark very quickly. And believe me, for young people, they do. Welcome back. I am Father Dominic Bouck. I am a priest of the Diocese of Bismarck, and I serve as the chaplain of the University of Mary. You are not enough. You are not enough. It's kind of a provocative way to start anything or to talk about anything, but you're not enough. It's kind of the opposite of a lot of the messaging that you hear today, where the kind of self-help mentality, self-esteem mentality, tries to build you up to realize your worth, your dignity, your goodness, your capability. And honestly, that's better. Like that's a decent thing. But good enough for what? You're enough for what? They say you are enough. Okay, yes. For what though? You can do it. You can do what? Believe in yourself and you can achieve your dreams. Well, what dreams are those? Are those good dreams? Are those bad dreams? Well, it doesn't matter because you just need to believe in yourself and work hard and you can accomplish whatever you set your mind to. How many people my age and younger have been told that their whole lives? I've worked with young people as a priest in the high school and collegiate level for my entire priesthood, 5 years now, and it's just so fascinating to see how emblazoned that mentality is on people's minds. I call it the Disney principle. If you don't listen to your parents, you don't listen to your society, which generally tend to restrict you. What do? You follow your dreams, and then you do what you want, and that's the magical happy ending, that you get to accomplish your own dreams. This isn't all bad. Nothing is all bad. That's the nice thing about human thought, is there's some truth in everything. Even Thomas Aquinas and Aristotle. There's some goodness, there's some truth in everything. So of course there's some goodness and there's some truth in here. And we're not trying to idealize any time period in history or say certain systems are perfect or, if we could only go back to this time. There's some actual good things about our age that are better than other ages probably, and you could have long arguments about that. The way we treat people with disabilities in our culture is pretty good. The way that we acknowledge the plight of people who are downtrodden, that's pretty good in our age. But in this sort of way, this mentality that we foist upon young people, to basically say that you are sufficient unto yourself to create meaning. Ding, 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 ding. This is the thing that we want. We are designed, we're hardwired, we're created, we exist to have meaning. The great poverty of our age is being told that you are sufficient unto yourself to have meaning in your life, that you are enough for meaning. It's one of these beautiful things, if you think of Jesus came into the world 2,000 years ago, roughly, that humans had existed, you take your pick or however you want to think about it. If the biblical years are what you prefer, 6,000 years or however many, if it's more of a scientific breakdown, 100,000 years. I just like saying 100,000 years. They adjust it all the time anyway. So we'll just say for 100,000 years people have existed. In the understanding of the Christian understanding of the human person, that we were created good, we were created in the image and likeness of God, and then we were wounded. But we weren't totally destroyed. God's creation of man was this very good event on the sixth day of creation, right? This story of Genesis 1. Very unique amidst the stories of creation. God made man in his own image and likeness, and it was very good, right? And he made him male and female, and the two shall become one flesh, and they should cultivate the garden, and they should take care of the creation that God entrusted to them. They had meaning right from the very beginning, but the ultimate meaning was all of that ordered towards their own relationship with God, who walked among them as a friend in the garden with them. They had their meaning in life, and then they said, we don't want that. What do we want? Well, we don't want to receive meaning. We want to make meaning for ourselves apart from God. Then it goes bad, because that always goes bad. Man, male and female, Adam and Eve, sought to make meaning for themselves. This happens again, interestingly, a few chapters later with the story of the Tower of Babel, where it wasn't just individuals, it was society saying, hey, let's make ourselves God. Let's build this tower to reach to the heavens and rule the earth as God. It didn't work. It created division, created the division of languages according to the story. But more fundamentally, that story was about saying, when man tries to make himself God, it's not enough. It's not naughty. I always tell people in the classes I teach, naughty is not a moral category. Is it? If you say, oh, just be a little naughty. No, there's no such thing as naughty. It's either good for you or it's bad for you. And there's a standard by which we judge that. Is it good or is it bad? Now, if you take the history of humanity, there's fundamentally good that comes from it. Man, the community of persons, is fundamentally good. It's just skewed. And so when we think of the charting of human history over 100,000 years, there's a lot of pitfalls, there's a lot of mistakes, there's a lot of damage. But there's also kind of the core element of it, that deep goodness that even man can't destroy, the goodness that God imbued in it. And this deep goodness is the good of existence. The good of existence, the highest good of existence, is what we would call meaning. And what is meaning in life? Well, there's at the end of the day, there's the deepest meaning that you would expect, kind of maybe, I don't know, you would expect a priest to say. Deepest meaning is to be in communion or to be in relationship with God. But there's kind of these concentric circles. There's that deepest, most fundamental meaning that's all-encompassing, our relationship with God. And then within that big circle, there's a bunch of concentric circles that fit in there. There's kind of, depending on the time or place that you exist, society, community, right? And there's different levels of community. We would think of sort of a country. If different times we think of like a kingdom. So there's that corporate identity that you have. Sometimes that's a tribe, a people. And then within that, there's the smaller subdivisions of that. And then there's your family. That's also a little different than we think of family. We think of family, at best, we think of like a nuclear family, mom, dad, kids. But family was a much bigger thing. It was like, if you go to even Europe today or places like Africa, it was kind of a much bigger thing. If you read the Gospels, Jesus, we always think of the Holy Family as like Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. But you read the Gospels and you realize he had a whole crowd of families. This is the normal experience of human life. You had your aunts, you had your uncles, you had your cousins, you had your grandparents. They all lived in the same kind of area that they always had lived. This is the network of belonging that you had. And then there was your nuclear family that you took care of, the immediate family, that was your job. And then there was yourself. Yourself was the smallest circle within all of those circles. That was an obligation that you had to take care of yourself. But it was in the context of all these bigger things. Now, the history of Christian salvation is saying you have to get those in the right order. What's the most fundamental? What's the basic? What's the foundation? Your relationship with God. This isn't a Christian invention. It's not a Jewish invention. This was the notion of all human civilizations. What was important in my life? Having things in the right order. I have to give service and worship and duty to the gods, or to God. I have my tribe or my nation to worry about. I have my local community to worry about. I have my extended family. I have my immediate family. And then I have myself. It's interesting to think about, like, what am I for? What's the purpose of my life? It's so stupid. It's this gravitational pull. You're taking the most intense force on earth, more than any sort of a physical pulling that can happen. Meaning, it's bigger than the physical universe. It's bigger than a tractor beam. And you're saying, what can sustain that level of intense gravitational pull, that immense weight? Is it me? And this is where we have to be honest with ourselves and say, look in the mirror. You think, I am sufficient to create meaning for myself. Really, you are? You've existed for, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You'll be gone from existence in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You think that you can provide meaning for yourself that's actually going to satisfy you? It's so sad. No one's ever thought this way in the history of civilization. Even to say the word civilization is to acknowledge that. We don't have a civilization of one. I'm identified by what I belong to. What do I belong to that's bigger than myself? We sometimes get this in little waves here and there, like patriotism or belonging to the, what used to be like the Elks Club or something. You get these little tastes of it. Nowadays, the only thing we have is an arbitrary sort of choosing of a sports team. Do you think, the Minnesota Vikings or whatever, do you think that's a sufficient enough meaning-making entity to sustain the gravitational pull of intrinsic meaning of my entire life? He was a Vikings fan. Oh yeah, that's enough. Like, what does that even mean? But that's even better than saying I'm enough for me. That Dominic would be enough to make meaning for Dominic. It's not that it's naughty. It's not that like you shouldn't do that. It's not physically possible. I can't sustain the weight and the pressure of meaning. And so what sounds good, and it sounds good, and therefore is eminently marketable, you follow your dreams. Is your dream to spend a lot of money at this college or to come to this vacation destination or to have these experiences? Great, because you need to do all these things to make meaning for yourself. It's very marketable, but it's totally insufficient. And so it works. It works in a movie. It works in the corporate media to say, just follow your dreams and you can do whatever you say you're going to do. Really? Is that little kids? They say, I want to work in HR. I want to work in finance or accounting. No, they don't. They want to be an astronaut, to be a plumber. Or no, they should say, I want to be a plumber. You make a lot of money doing that. You want to do these things. I can't. I could never be in the NBA. I can't work hard enough and set my mind enough to be as good as an NBA star. It's not possible. Well, haven't you seen the movie Rudy? Yeah, Rudy. We always say the 1 in a million, No, you're 999,999, right? 1 in a million. Well, no, you're the 1 in a million. But even look when it works for Rudy. The best part of the movie Rudy is when the guy says to him, you got a college education, right? That's the key to Rudy. But he missed the whole thing because he had his sights set on this dream to set himself for this meaning-making expedition that didn't work. And even if it does work, I noticed, the video of Tom Brady. How many Super Bowls? 1, 2, 3. Is that enough? 4? Is that enough? 5? Is that enough? 6? Why is LeBron James still playing basketball? What is this infinite need we have to have meaning? It's infinite. It's more powerful than any physical force. And if it doesn't have enough to sustain it, what happens on a physical force level when that happens? You have a black hole. It's an infinite sucking. More. You can't have it. I talk about, what sustains it. Well, if you think about the concentric circles, it's not as if everyone has always been so religious. So why are we finding ourselves in a crisis these days? The crisis is the Surgeon General of the United States usually talks about things like obesity, right? Talks about cigarette smoking, what have you. The last 2 major initiatives released this year by the Surgeon General have been on loneliness. Loneliness, think about that. That's a health epidemic in our country. Loneliness. That's not a drug, right? It's not a virus. It's an existential problem. And the other one's social media. Social media. The Surgeon General, these people, it's not a religious entity. They're not sort of culture warriors. They're health people and sometimes pretty misguided. But even they can't deny or ignore the fact that young people are lonely and they're trying to fill it with something that's actually exacerbating that. It's making it worse. Social media. And it's all on the backs of this marketability of young people to try to sustain in them an identity of meaning. Because what we've sold from my generation, especially on down, is say, just follow your dreams, do whatever you want. Well, what should I want? It's up to you. You ask, you want to have a funny conversation? Ask a young person, late high school, college, what do you want to do with your life? And they go, right? They hate it. They don't want, because there's no guidance. There's no idea to say, your country needs you, or your community needs you, or your family needs you, or even worse, your church needs you. God wants to use you in a certain way. It's up to you to figure out, what do you want to do with your life? And you don't know. If you're 19, you've never been 20 before. You've never been 30 before. You've never been 40 before. You're supposed to design your own life, and you've been alive for 18 years. Your frontal cortex hasn't even developed, and you're supposed to understand and decide for yourself originally and uniquely what the meaning of your life is. And so what do? Millennials, Gen Z, whatever, you reinvent yourself. You're constantly reinventing yourself. Okay, I don't have meaning like this, so I have to reinvent myself as something else. I don't understand what the meaning of life is, so I have to design the meaning of life according to what? Not according to the objective meaning of the universe, but according to myself. And I change. Think about what you thought about 10 years ago. Is that the things you still think about are important now? Not if it's not rooted in something that's eternal. And so in the course of human existence, every civilization has understood this. You have the gods, you have society, you have the tribe, you have your family, and you are at the service of those things. And that is a life of meaning. That is a life well lived. To say, what can I give myself to that's bigger than myself? What can I give myself to that lasts longer than me? In our society, it's a very comfortable society. If you imagine what can occupy your mind, you can say, well, let's imagine, for instance, in this country where we deal with this in a very particular way, you're an immigrant 120 years ago, right? You're an Italian immigrant, Irish immigrant, what have you. You come to this country, you don't have a lot. So what do? Your life can have a certain level of meaning, maybe not the highest meaning, but the irony is they didn't understand the highest meaning. So they came here and built churches. It's like the first thing they did. It's like, we don't have anything, but the first thing we're going to do is get our priorities right. What are we going to do? We need a place to worship God because that's the highest. We don't even have money. We don't have a house. We live in tenements. It's hard. We're going to build a church. Okay. Then what? But then the rest of my mind and my imagination can be occupied by saying, I don't live in a very good economic status, and I have children, and I want to improve for them. Great. So what do? We work hard. Then what happens to those kids? They have it a little better. They work hard for their parents, right? And then in the 50s, you have the suburban boom. So then I finally have my little castle out in the suburbs where I have a fence, and I have a nuclear family. I'm not in those crowded tenements where we were all smashed in together and we're all trying to do different things to occupy our minds, to distract ourselves from the difficulties, but we worked hard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so then you're in the suburbs. Those parents, those people were raised in that communal environment, but then their kids are not. Their kids are raised, in the suburbs, and then they have kids, and it starts, the law of diminishing returns starts to take effect. Okay, so you had your house with the fence. You had your own little domain with your nuclear family. Then what? Okay, your kids, now they can move into bigger houses. Great. And I even remember this. I was born in 1989. I remember the advent of like the triple garage, Oh, we had a triple garage. We didn't. We had a single garage, 7 kids, small bathroom. But I remember in my town when the triple garage started coming, I was like, wow, those people really have it. Well, then you think, okay, it was one thing to want to move from tenements and 12 hungry kids, and you improve your life, and you get your house. Okay, now we're getting, And now all of a sudden, what? You're a kid that was born in the year 2000. You had a triple garage, right? What's the big inspiration to want to do something with your life? We've already eliminated objective meaning. Certainly God's been eliminated. There's not some sort of tribal proliferation. I don't need to advance the cause of any sort of people. Okay, so that's gone. And it's placed on me to say, what do I want? Well, I'm pretty comfortable. I can live in my parents' basement for a long time. There's not a lot of motivation. I don't need to, you say, you need to get a job. Why? Well, to survive. Is that really true? You can survive quite a long time without a job. So what's the motivation? Well, you have to do better than your previous generation. Well, 1, with college debt, that's really hard. And 2, with the economy that's generally kind of harder and different economic trends and stuff like that. So it's not that kind of immigrant motivation to say, I need to do really well so that I can improve upon these difficult situations. So that's not a big motivation. I've eliminated objective meaning, so it's on me but I'm pretty comfortable as is. So I need to provide for my kids a 4-car garage. What's their generation? 5-car garage? We just go 10 generations down the road, we'll have 20 stall garages. Is that what we're working for? And so for young people, it's all on them to say, oh, you figure out the meaning of life. In a time and a place of great affluence or of economic wealth, in sort of comfortability, we have climate control, right? We have ease of transportation. We have kind of an infinite supply of food for a lot of people, especially middle-class people. They say, what's the purpose of life? Why? This is a great question to keep asking. Why? And the more comfortable a society is, the more important that question is, because you don't need to work hard to survive. You can kind of just survive. And then you start asking these existential questions. Why do I exist? And let's say life is really hard for you right now. Let's say people are being mean to you. You're being bullied. And you say, why do I exist? And you say, well, you're in charge of making your own meaning. And this is the hardest thing to come face to face to say, I'm just not very good at making meaning. Wow. Well, then you have a really serious existential problem. And if you don't have a philosophical, integrated framework in which to plug into, then those thoughts can get very dark very quickly. And believe me, for young people, they do. They get very dark very quickly. And so what do? These are hard questions. It's very tragic questions a lot of times in the lives of young people. And that's why the crisis is so real and so felt and so present. But maybe it's time to take a step back from our efficient society in the West. We're good at efficiency. We're good at success. We're good at hard work. We're good at problem solving. We're good at advancing materially. But what are we bad at? Relationships. We're bad at existing. We're bad at having meaning. And we're feeling that crisis right now to say, what is my meaning in life? And I got to say, for myself, when I have dark days, or when I look at my life, when I say, is it too good to be true? Is there really a triune God? Is there really a God-man who walked this earth? The deepest reason why I say yes to those questions is because I know I need a life of meaning. I know I can't do it myself. I know I can't sit here in the mirror and say, I am enough to make meaning for myself, to make meaning for the existence, to make meaning for the universe. I can't do that on my own. And so what do I need? I need something bigger than myself. I need something that existed before me, and I need something that I can plug into that will last far longer than I will. And there's, in the end, only one thing that can do that, and that, of course, is the eternal God. But at the very least, to find something, a society, a cause, a meaning. And we see that with people, they have this infinite impulse, and so they attach themselves to some cause, but it's not infinite, and it's only partial truth. But they give it that infinite value. And so what happens, you get the activist. I'm gonna fight really hard for something. But even then, that goes away. You get burnout, right? You get disappointment. That what I set my mind to, if it's enclosed in this earth, it will necessarily fail, right? It will necessarily fall apart. People will disappoint you. Causes will disappoint you. Things will run out. You'll run out of steam. You'll disappoint yourself. So at the end of the day, there's only one thing that can sustain me, and that's something that's infinite. It's the only thing that can sustain that infinite desire within myself to prevent it from being a black hole. It's not easy, but it's worth fighting for. It's worth fighting for infinite meaning, to say I can only be satisfied by something infinite. And so I'm gonna have my ups. I'm gonna have my successes. I'm gonna have my downs. I'm gonna have my failures. It's gonna be hard, but I'm gonna keep at it to not sell myself short of finding something infinite, of finding something everlasting to cling on to, and to say this is a life worth living. Anything less will disappoint you. And then once that deepest circle is realized, then to say, okay, what are the other things in context that I can build a life on? What can I plug into that has meaning beyond just the instant gratification culture or the dream culture that I've been convinced into buying into? And so It's not flippant to say you're not enough. It's the most freeing phrase you could ever say in your life, to look in the mirror and say, I truly am not enough, but I can find what is enough. I can plug into what is enough. And the beautiful Christian mystery is I can even be bad at it. I can be a failure. I can be a Peter. I can be a Mary Magdalene. I can trip up constantly. With every, the saying goes, with every saint there's a past, with every sinner there's a future. That it's not about me getting it right all the time. It's not about me knowing all the answers. It's not even about me knowing what I want to do when I grow up. It's all about just knowing what's the right framework that I can plug into to have that meaning, to not define my meaning, but to receive my meaning, not to create, but to participate in the creation that pre-existed me and will exist beyond me, and to actually think that infinite creation of which I've been alive 33 years, that infinite creator who looks at me, he looks at me, 33-year-old from North Dakota. Who cares? I'm a little shorter than I'd like to be, right? My voice is a little bit more nasally than I'd like it to be. I make mistakes, I sin. And yet he looks at me and he says, I love you. I, the infinite creator of the universe, look at you, Dominic, and I love you. I care about you. Why, God? Why do you care about me? And that's a conversation that will take an infinite lifetime to have. And that's what gets me through the dark days. That's what gets me through the failures, to say, yeah, I'm not enough, but he is. And he's deemed me worthy to be enough too. Thanks for watching. I like to thank my friends at Stand Firm Productions, and do them a favor, like and subscribe, because the content today was but it's going to get only better after this.